She thought it was just another flight, but the crew had other plans. The yelling started before takeoff, but no one expected how it would end. Passengers whispered, cameras recorded, and tension filled the cabin. By the time the wheels left the ground, everyone knew this flight wouldn't land the same way. It's 6:30 a.m. at Heathrow Airport. The terminal feels colder than usual, lit by harsh fluorescent lights bouncing off glass walls. The crowd is a restless mix, businessmen rushing, families juggling strollers, and solo travelers clutching coffee cups to stay awake. Among them is Naomi, 21, a soft-spoken black girl with curly hair pulled into a neat bun. She's wearing a light beige trench coat over a navy turtleneck, her suitcase small and scuffed from years of use. This is her first international trip to the U.S. She's flying to visit her aunt, a nurse in New York. But Naomi feels the weight of eyes on her. Two passengers, a silver-haired man in a tailored suit and a red lipstick woman draped in fur, whisper near the boarding area. Their glances cut sharp, and though their words are low, Naomi catches a snippet. Not surprised, you know how they are. The boarding call rings out, monotone. Flight 618 to New York, now boarding all rows. Please have your documents ready. Naomi grips her passport tighter. She joins the line, shoulders squared, but can't shake the crawling tension in her chest. At the gate, the agent scans her ticket, glances up with a faintly raised brow, and murmurs something to a waiting flight attendant at the plane's door. The attendant, Victoria, late 30s, white, sleek ponytail, crisp uniform, doesn't smile when Naomi steps onto the jet bridge. Her eyes flicker over Naomi's clothes, her bag, her posture. The kind of look that feels less like welcome aboard and more like watch yourself. Naomi exhales, brushing off the unease as she steps inside the cabin. The flight hasn't even left the ground, and already feels heavy. She thought she was just taking her seat, but the crew had other ideas. A single remark in the aisle, and everything changed. Passengers watched, phones came out, and the tension spiked. By the time the cabin doors closed, everyone knew this wasn't just another flight. The cabin is half-lit, a mix of early sunlight streaming through open windows and the dull hum of overhead LEDs. Naomi rolls her suitcase down the narrow aisle toward row 10, a premium economy section, not quite first class but still spacious. Victoria, the attendant, follows her with her eyes. Her posture stiff, her tone clipped. As Naomi slides her suitcase into the overhead bin, a voice hisses behind her, the red lipstick woman from the gate. She leans toward Victoria and mutters loudly enough for Naomi to hear. Figures. They always sit up here, thinking they belong. Naomi freezes. Her hands hover over her seatbelt. Before she can speak, Victoria steps closer, blocking the aisle. Her voice carries across the cabin. Miss, are you certain this is your seat? This section is for premium passengers only. You might want to double-check with the gate agent. A few passengers look up from their phones, sensing trouble. A man 2 rows back tilts his phone camera up, recording casually. Naomi, cheeks flushing, hands over her ticket. Victoria snatches it, glances once, then exhales sharply as though Naomi has wasted her time. Fine. Take your seat, but please, next time, be sure you're in the right section. We have procedures for a reason. The whispering starts again. The red lipstick woman smirks. The suited man mutters to his neighbor. Mark my words, this one's going to cause problems. Naomi sits down slowly, staring at her lap. Her chest feels tight. She doesn't know why they've singled her out, but deep down, she senses it's not going to end here. She just wanted a quiet flight, but the yelling came before takeoff. One command from the crew, and the cabin froze. Phones came out, whispers turned to gasps. By the time the captain's voice crackled overhead, everyone knew this flight was cursed. Naomi adjusts herself in seat 10B. The seat feels colder than it should. She tries to focus on her phone, scrolling through a message from her aunt reminding her to stay calm on the long flight. The cabin door closes with a heavy thud. A soft ding signals the final boarding, but the mood isn't calm. It's like the air itself is waiting for something to snap. Victoria, the flight attendant, starts her walk down the aisle. Her heels click sharply against the floor. She pauses by Naomi's row, her expression sharp as glass. "Excuse me, miss." Her voice is louder than necessary, drawing nearby eyes. "Did you place your bag in the overhead compartment correctly? I don't want any issues during takeoff. You people often forget the rules." Naomi blinks, startled. "My bag is secure. I made sure." Victoria cuts her off, her voice rising, a note of impatience sharp enough to sting. "Don't argue. Stand up. I'll check it myself." The man in the suit from earlier leans over to his neighbor, whispering, "Here we go." His phone is already pointed toward them, camera app open. Naomi stands, cheeks heating, as Victoria yanks open the overhead bin and dramatically jiggles the bag. Barely secure. This is exactly why we have standards. People need to follow instructions. A passenger 3 rows back mutters, "Bit much, isn't it?" but keeps recording. Naomi's voice is quiet, almost trembling. "Ma'am, I did secure it. I double-checked before I sat down. There's no need to." Victoria spins on her heel, her tone turning cutting, loud enough for the entire cabin to hear. "If you can't follow basic safety rules, maybe you shouldn't be sitting in premium seating at all." A collective murmur ripples through the cabin. Someone whispers, "Why is she singling her out? She didn't do anything." Naomi lowers her eyes, hands gripping the armrests as she sits back down. Her chest pounds. The hum of engines outside grows louder, but inside, the tension has already reached boiling point. And for the first time, Naomi realizes this isn't just a difficult attendant. Something more is coming, and the whole cabin feels it. She thought it would stop with a warning, but the yelling got louder. The crew's voice cut through the cabin like a siren. Passengers shifted, cameras zoomed in, and whispers turned into shock. By the time the threat came, Naomi knew this wasn't about rules anymore. The cabin lights dim slightly as the crew prepares for the safety demonstration, but no one is looking at the screens. Every eye is on row 10. Naomi tries to keep her breathing steady, staring at her hands folded in her lap. The low roar of the engines outside is a distant sound compared to the click, click, click of Victoria's heels as she stalks back toward her row. She stops beside Naomi, arms crossed. Her voice is sharp, slicing through the hushed chatter. "Stand up. Now." Naomi looks up, startled. Is something wrong?" Victoria's lip curls, her voice rising louder this time. "You're in a premium seat. I need to confirm your boarding details again. We don't allow misunderstandings to disrupt this flight." The suited man whispers loudly to the woman beside him, making sure others can hear. "Told you. She probably got a cheap upgrade. Doesn't even belong here." Naomi swallows hard and stands, clutching her passport. Her knees feel unsteady as Victoria snatches the document, flipping through it like she's looking for a reason to eject her from the plane. Passengers are openly recording now. A teenager in row 9 whispers, "This is insane. She didn't even do anything." Naomi speaks softly, her voice shaking. "Ma'am, I paid for this seat. My aunt booked it for me. There's no misunderstanding." Victoria cuts her off, stepping closer so her shadow looms. "If you can't follow procedure, I'll have no choice but to move you to standard seating." Or, she lets the word hang in the air, letting the threat sink in. "We can have security escort you off the flight entirely. Your choice." Gasps ripple through the cabin. Someone mutters, "She's pushing her too far." The phones are still recording, some discreetly, others not. Naomi's face burns. She's frozen, not from guilt, but from the humiliation of being treated like a criminal for simply sitting where she belongs. The engines rumble louder. The plane is moments from taxiing. And Naomi realizes she's trapped in this metal tube, thousands of feet in the air soon, with nowhere to run. And Victoria? She's just getting started. She thought it couldn't get worse, but the shouting hit full force. The cabin froze, the engines roared, and every phone pointed her way. By the time the seatbelt signs lit up, everyone knew this flight would not be ordinary. The cabin doors slam shut as the plane begins to taxi. The engines rumble beneath the floor, but it's not the vibration that keeps passengers awake, it's the tension lingering in the aisle. Naomi sinks into her seat, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Her chest rises and falls in shallow breaths. She wants to disappear, but Victoria's shadow returns like a storm cloud. The flight attendant steps closer, her polished shoes clicking sharply as she stops at Naomi's row. She doesn't lower her voice this time. She doesn't care who's listening. "Miss, I told you before, this section is for passengers who follow the rules. If you can't comply, I will move you." Naomi tries to speak, her voice tight but steady. "I have followed every rule. My bag is secured. My documents are correct. Please. I just want to sit in peace." Victoria's tone turns venomous, her voice snapping like a whip for the entire cabin to hear. "Don't talk back to me. If you keep this up, I'll have the captain radio for security at the next stop, and you'll be off this plane before we even hit the ocean." The cabin falls silent. Every passenger is watching now. Phones rise higher, some without shame. The suited man mutters, "About time someone put her in her place." But others shift uncomfortably, whispering, "She didn't even do anything. Why is the attendant screaming at her like that?" Naomi's eyes sting, but she refuses to cry. Instead, she grips the armrests, her knuckles white. Her inner thoughts spiral. "Why me? Why here? I can't even defend myself. If I say more, she'll make it worse. I just need to survive this flight." Suddenly, the intercom crackles to life. The captain's calm voice cuts through the heavy air. "Cabin crew, please prepare for departure. Ensure passengers are seated and secure." Victoria glares down at Naomi one last time, her voice cold, quiet but firm. "Don't cause trouble, or you won't like how this flight ends for you." She pivots on her heel and strides toward the galley. The passengers murmur again, the air thick with unease. The plane begins to accelerate down the runway. Naomi exhales shakily, staring out the window as the ground blurs below. But deep down, she feels it. This isn't just a hostile attendant. Something far worse is coming, and the flight hasn't even left cruising altitude. She thought the yelling was over, but the tension only grew. The air felt heavier, the whispers sharper, and the shadows longer. By the time the seatbelt sign chimed, passengers knew something bad was about to happen. The plane lifts off with a shudder, engines roaring as the city lights of London disappear below. Most passengers lean back, relieved, settling into the hum of flight. But for Naomi, the hum feels like a warning. Her gaze flicks around the cabin, faces watching her, some with pity, others with cold amusement. She hears the faint buzz of a phone capturing video behind her. The red lipstick woman leans to the suited man, murmuring just loud enough. "Bet she gets escorted off when we land." The seatbelt sign dings off, and passengers begin moving. The atmosphere, however, is far from relaxed. Victoria reappears from the galley, her expression unreadable but her eyes still locked on Naomi like a hawk circling prey. She strolls down the aisle, her heels like gunshots against the carpet. She pauses near Naomi's row and announces, loud enough for everyone in earshot. "Reminder to all passengers, disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Our crew has full authority to relocate or remove anyone jeopardizing flight order." Several passengers turn to look at Naomi, even though she hasn't moved an inch. Naomi shifts uncomfortably, her mind racing. She's not even hiding it anymore. She's pointing at me without pointing. What do I do? If I stand up for myself, I'll be the problem. If I stay quiet, they'll think I'm guilty anyway. The engines drone, steady and ominous. The lights in the cabin dim slightly for the evening schedule, casting Victoria's figure into sharp contrast as she lingers by Naomi's row, arms crossed. The suited man mutters again, "Watch, she's going to blow up before we even cross the Atlantic." Then, a subtle jolt. The plane trembles briefly, a bump of turbulence. A few passengers glance up nervously. Naomi grips her armrest, her stomach tightening. Victoria doesn't move, doesn't reassure anyone. She just watches Naomi. Almost like she's waiting for her to crack first. The atmosphere feels heavier now. Not just tension, but something darker, creeping in with every passing mile. She thought the tension couldn't get heavier, then the plane shook. The rattling trays, gasps, and nervous whispers became the perfect excuse. By the time the captain spoke again, Naomi realized this wasn't just turbulence. The cabin lurches suddenly, trays rattling, drinks sloshing. A collective murmur of fear ripples through the rows. The seatbelt sign flashes back on with a ding. Naomi grips her armrests tightly, knuckles pale. She's flown before, but never felt this kind of rolling drop. The engines hum louder, as though straining. From the aisle, Victoria strides forward, her voice firm but unusually loud. Everyone, remain seated and buckle up immediately. I repeat, remain seated. But her eyes lock only on Naomi. She stops beside row 10, leans slightly closer, and her voice drops low but sharp enough for nearby passengers to hear. Make sure your bag isn't loose this time. We can't have avoidable accidents. Naomi exhales shakily. I already checked it twice. Victoria's tone slices through the growing murmur of the cabin. Then check again. Or I'll have you moved to the back where you can't endanger anyone. The red lipstick woman whispers to the suited man, she's going to crack soon. Just watch. Naomi feels dozens of eyes on her. Her pulse races, her breath short. Every muscle in her body wants to disappear, but the turbulence jolts the plane again, harder this time, throwing a few cups from tray tables. Passengers gasp, one man curses under his breath as his drink spills. Victoria raises her voice across the aisle. This is exactly why rules matter. When passengers can't comply, small issues become big problems. No one's looking at anyone else now. Every phone is angled toward the aisle. Everyone knows she isn't talking about rules in general. Naomi stares out the window, her reflection pale against the darkening sky. Her thoughts spiral. If this gets worse, what happens? If she blames me, will the captain believe her? Will we even make it to New York? The turbulence subsides slightly, but the tension in the cabin doesn't. If anything, it thickens, clinging like a storm cloud. And Victoria? She's walking away, but only to circle back. The look in her eyes says she's not finished. Not even close. She thought staying silent would protect her, but silence became a weapon. The turbulence gave them a reason, the whispers became witnesses, and the aisle turned into a stage. By the time the captain's name was mentioned, Naomi knew they were building a case against her. The plane steadies briefly, but the air feels like it's holding its breath. The cabin is dim except for the soft glow of reading lights, each passenger's face lit in fragments. Naomi sits perfectly still, hands clasped on her lap, trying to seem invisible. Her pulse still pounds from the turbulence, but the quiet is worse. Every shuffle, every whisper feels directed at her. The soft click of heels returns. Victoria appears again, hands clasped behind her back, chin tilted upward like a judge in her own courtroom. She doesn't lower her voice this time. Miss, stand up for a moment. We've had reports from other passengers that you've been causing disturbances during turbulence. Naomi's eyes widen. What? I haven't even moved. The red lipstick woman, still leaning smugly in her seat, chimes in. She was fiddling with her bag. I saw it. Unsafe. Completely against instructions. The suited man adds without being asked. She was restless. Couldn't stay put. I'm not surprised the attendant's concerned. Murmurs ripple through the cabin. A few passengers mutter objections, one voice whispers, she hasn't done a thing, but others remain silent, choosing not to get involved. Naomi's breath comes fast, her voice shaking. I didn't touch anything. I followed the rules. I haven't said a word. Victoria raises a hand, cutting her off, her tone now carrying an edge of official threat. The captain will need to know if you're unable to comply with safety instructions. One more infraction, and I'll have to report you. Is that understood? Phones rise again. The teenager from row 9 whispers into his camera. They're singling her out. She hasn't done anything, but they're making it look like she's the problem. Naomi feels the weight of every eye, every lens. Her stomach twists. Her inner thoughts race. If they tell the captain I'm a problem, will they land the plane? Will they throw me off at some random airport? Everyone will believe them over me. I'm just one passenger. Victoria's voice softens, but only as a blade softens before cutting deeper. Stay seated. Stay quiet. Or I'll have no choice but to escalate this further. She walks away, her shadow trailing like a warning. Naomi exhales shakily, realizing this isn't just about humiliation anymore. They're setting her up for something. And she has no idea how far they'll go. She thought keeping still would save her, but the storm wasn't done. The cabin rattled, voices clashed, and the threat got real. By the time the word diversion left Victoria's lips, Naomi knew this flight might never reach New York. The plane jolts again, harder this time. A sharp drop makes passengers grip their seats and gasp as cups tip and roll across the aisle. The lights flicker once before steadying, the engines groaning against the wind. Naomi grips her seatbelt, her stomach lurching as if gravity is tilting sideways. She's silent, frozen, but around her, tension boils over. The red lipstick woman leans forward, her voice loud, slicing through the low hum of fear. See? This is exactly what happens when certain people can't follow rules. Endangering everyone. Naomi's breath catches. She hasn't moved. She hasn't spoken. But before she can say a word, Victoria storms down the aisle, her hair still sleek despite the tremors of the aircraft, her voice booming. I've warned you twice, miss. One more disturbance, and I'll have no choice but to inform the captain. We'll divert this flight if necessary. Gasps ripple through the cabin. Someone whispers, divert? Over this? Another mutters, she's just sitting there. The suited man, clearly enjoying the chaos, adds fuel. I saw her unbuckle during turbulence. Nearly stood up. Dangerous. Completely unacceptable. Naomi's eyes widen. That's not true. I never. Victoria snaps, her finger raised like a gavel. Enough. I will not debate this in front of other passengers. If you cannot remain compliant, I'll personally request this flight land at the nearest airport and have security escort you off. Do I make myself clear? Her voice echoes, cutting through the roar of the engines. Every phone is up now, recording openly. Whispers turn to low arguments, some siding with Naomi, others staying quiet, afraid to cross the crew. Naomi's chest heaves, but she bites her tongue. Her inner thoughts spiral, louder than the turbulence itself. If they land this plane because of me, will anyone believe the truth? The videos might help, but what if they get deleted? What if no one cares? I can't win. I can't speak. I just have to survive this, somehow. The plane jolts again, trays rattling like bones. The seatbelt sign dings once more, a hollow warning. Victoria doesn't move on this time. She stands at Naomi's row, arms crossed, her presence a constant reminder that this is no longer about safety. This is about power. And Naomi's running out of air and options. She thought staying silent was enough, but silence wasn't protection anymore. The crew's voice became a weapon, the cabin split into sides, and fear spread faster than the turbulence. By the time the captain's voice cut through the chaos, every passenger knew, this flight might not make it to New York. The plane shudders again, a deeper roll that sends a few drinks crashing to the floor and a baby wailing somewhere near row 14. The hum of nervous whispers grows louder than the engines. Naomi sits stiff, her hands locked on the armrests, trying to be invisible. But invisibility isn't possible anymore, not when Victoria stops at her row again, this time with her arms planted firmly on her hips, voice booming across the dim cabin. This is your final warning. Any further refusal to follow safety protocol, and I'll be forced to inform the captain to prepare for a diversion landing for everyone's safety. Gasps echo through the cabin. The word diversion hangs heavy in the air. A man from row 11 leans forward, speaking just loud enough. For what? She hasn't even moved. Another passenger mutters, "This is getting ridiculous," while the red lipstick woman fires back, her voice shrill. "She's making everyone unsafe. The crew knows what they're doing, let them handle it." Phones are everywhere now, some tilted over the aisle, others brazenly pointed at Victoria. The teenager from row 9 whispers into his camera. "She's threatening to land the whole plane over literally nothing. Everyone can see this." Naomi's pulse hammers in her ears. She opens her mouth to defend herself, but the suited man cuts in first, gesturing toward her like an attorney presenting evidence. "I saw her shift during turbulence again. Nearly stood. Imagine if we hit another drop. She's a hazard." Naomi blurts out, her voice cracking but finally loud enough to be heard. "That's a lie. I never stood up. I haven't moved except when she told me to." Victoria slams her palm against the side of the overhead compartment, the sound echoing like a gavel. Her voice rises to a sharp, cutting shout. "Enough! One more word, and this flight will not continue to New York. Do you understand me?" The cabin goes silent, except for the baby still crying, and the muted beep of another phone starting to record. Naomi's chest heaves as she swallows back her words. Her inner thoughts spiral. "I can't win this. She's making me the villain. And if they land this plane, everyone will hate me for ruining their flight. No one will hear my side. No one will care." The intercom crackles suddenly, cutting through the heavy silence. The captain's calm voice fills the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some unexpected turbulence. The crew will remain seated for safety. Please stay buckled. We may need to reassess our route if conditions continue." The word reassess hits like a dagger. Passengers exchange nervous looks. Some glare at Naomi as if she's the cause, others stare at Victoria like she's gone too far. The tension isn't just thick now, it's a living thing, crawling through every row. And for Naomi, sitting alone in row 10, it feels like the walls of this plane are closing in. She thought the worst was over, but the plane became a battlefield. Passengers picked sides, voices clashed, and fear replaced reason. By the time the lights flickered and the captain's tone changed, Naomi knew this flight was spiraling toward disaster. The plane jolts again, a rough sway that knocks a water bottle down the aisle. Someone yells from the back, startled. The overhead bins creak slightly as the aircraft levels itself. Naomi sits motionless in her seat, fingers digging into the armrests. Her body is rigid, her chest tight, but her mind is screaming. "Don't move! Don't speak! Don't breathe too loud! Every camera, every glare, is waiting for me to slip." But silence doesn't protect her anymore. The red lipstick woman leans halfway into the aisle, pointing a manicured finger toward Naomi as if addressing a courtroom. "Why is she still here? She's a danger. We all heard the warning. She should be moved, or this flight needs to land before something worse happens." Her words spark an instant wave of noise. Some passengers murmur agreement, others bristle. A young man from row 8 raises his voice over the din. "She hasn't done a thing. You're all acting like she caused the weather." Victoria, standing 2 rows up, raises a hand for silence, but her own voice only fuels the chaos. "Everyone, please. The situation is under control, as long as passengers remain compliant." Her gaze locks on Naomi with surgical precision as she adds, "Any further disruption, and I'll notify the captain to divert immediately." The suited man chimes in, his voice calm but cutting. "Look around. Everyone's tense because one person can't seem to follow instructions. It's selfish, and it's risking all of us." Another passenger, a middle-aged woman clutching her phone, fires back. "She's not the problem, the crew is. I've been recording everything, and it's clear she's done nothing wrong." Voices rise and overlap, the cabin turning into a chorus of accusations and defenses. Some film openly, others shout for calm, while the plane hums steadily beneath the chaos. Naomi's pulse is a drumbeat in her ears. She glances toward the window, wishing she could vanish into the dark clouds below. Her inner thoughts spin like a whirlpool. This isn't about me anymore, it's them. It's everyone. They're looking for a villain, and I'm the easiest one here. Suddenly, the cabin lights flicker twice, the overhead ding sounding sharper than before. The intercom clicks on again, but the captain's tone this time isn't calm, it's firm, clipped. Ladies and gentlemen, we're monitoring worsening weather conditions ahead. The crew is assessing alternate options to ensure your safety. Please remain in your seats and minimize movement. The words alternate options hit the cabin like a detonator. The murmurs turn to audible panic. Eyes shift between Naomi and Victoria, as if both might be to blame. And as the plane dips slightly, the weight of what's coming finally settles. They might not be flying to New York anymore. And Naomi? She might not leave this plane without another fight. She thought the storm outside was the danger, but the real storm was in the aisle. Passengers rose from seats, voices clashed like thunder, and the crew lost control. By the time the captain's voice caught back in, the entire cabin knew this flight was about to change course. The plane lurches again, a heavy drop that sends loose cups and napkins skidding across the floor. Gasps echo, followed by tense silence, until a man in row 15 shouts out, "What's happening? Are we even going to make it?" The anxiety spreads like wildfire. Naomi grips her seatbelt so tightly her fingers ache. Her pulse pounds in her ears, every jolt of the plane making her chest tighten more. She can hear whispers all around, some blaming the weather, others still blaming her. The red lipstick woman stands, using the seat back for balance. Her voice carries down the aisle, sharp and accusing. "This is ridiculous. We're all at risk because the crew won't remove her. She's been nothing but a distraction since we boarded." Naomi's eyes sting as she looks down at her lap. Her thoughts churn. How can they see me as the problem when I haven't even moved? Why won't anyone stop her? A young man from row 8 stands too, raising his phone, his voice firm. "No. This isn't on her. I've been recording since boarding, she hasn't done a thing wrong. This is harassment, and everyone needs to see it." Voices overlap, some defending Naomi, others siding with the accusers. The suited man leans back in his chair, smirking, but raises his voice to add fuel. "It doesn't matter what the girl's done. The point is everyone's on edge, and we need peace. If she can't guarantee that, the captain should land the plane." Victoria steps into the fray, her presence slicing through the noise. Her voice is calm on the surface, but her eyes burn cold as she says, "Enough. All passengers sit down immediately. This flight will remain orderly, or we will divert." She looks directly at Naomi as she says divert, making the target clear. Naomi feels her throat tighten, but before she can respond, a woman 2 rows back yells over the chaos. "You can't blame her for turbulence. If you land this plane over this, it's on the crew, not her." The cabin is a storm of clashing voices now, some calling for calm, others shouting for removal. A child starts crying. The hum of the engines feels louder, rougher, as though the plane itself is groaning under the tension. Then, the intercom snaps to life, the captain's voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Attention passengers, we're experiencing unstable conditions and escalating conflicts on board. For everyone's safety, we are now evaluating an alternate landing site. Crew, prepare to secure the cabin immediately." The words drop like lead in the aisle. Gasps and curses fill the air. Some passengers look to Naomi with anger, others with pity. Naomi feels the walls of the cabin close in. Her thoughts spiral. They're really going to do it. They're going to land because of me, even though I haven't done anything. When we touch down, will anyone believe me? Or will I just be another problem passenger they write off? Victoria leans slightly toward Naomi as the cabin quiets, her voice low but dripping with venom. "You see what you've caused? You better hope we land smoothly, because when we do, you'll have explaining to do. The plane dips again, the lights flickering as the engines hum deeper. And everyone, Naomi most of all, knows the night is far from over. She thought the threats were just words, but the cabin went silent when the captain confirmed it. Faces turned, voices lowered, and the tension snapped into fear. By the time the lights dimmed and the route changed, Naomi knew this flight was officially off course. The plane tilts slightly, banking harder than usual as a low beat from the cockpit echoes through the speakers. The cabin lights dim further, casting uneasy shadows across the rows. The whispering stops for just a moment, everyone waiting, holding their breath. Then, the captain's voice returns, calm but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, due to worsening conditions and escalating disruptions on board, we are diverting to Shannon Airport in Ireland for a precautionary landing. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Cabin crew, prepare the cabin for descent. The words hang in the air like a verdict. Gasps erupt across the rows. Someone shouts from the back. We're not even halfway across the ocean. What's going on? Naomi feels her stomach drop, heavier than the tilt of the plane. Her mind races. They're really doing it. They're blaming me. Everyone will believe their version, the loud voices, the ones with power. What happens when we land? Am I arrested? Blacklisted? Humiliated? The red lipstick woman crosses her arms, smirking with satisfaction. Her voice cuts through the tension. Finally. Maybe now we can all feel safe. The suited man leans forward, his tone dripping with mock reason. Best for everyone, really. Can't risk a disruptive passenger on a transatlantic flight. The captain made the right call. The young man with the phone snaps back, his voice louder this time. Disruptive? She's been silent for the last half hour. Everyone can see what's really happening here. Voices rise again, the cabin a storm of accusations and defenses, louder than before. Children cry. A woman in row 16 prays softly under her breath. Victoria walks the aisle with slow, deliberate steps, her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She stops at Naomi's row, leaning down just enough for Naomi to hear over the murmurs. When we land, security will have questions. I suggest you prepare answers. Naomi's chest feels like it's closing in, her breath shallow. Her inner thoughts spiral like the plane's slow descent. I don't even know what I'd say. The videos might help, but will anyone believe them over the crew? Will they twist this until I'm just the problem passenger? The seatbelt sign dings, the chime sharp in the tense silence. The engines hum lower as the plane begins to descend through the clouds. Every passenger knows this flight isn't heading where it was supposed to. And for Naomi, this might be the longest descent of her life. She thought the descent would bring calm, but it only unleashed panic. The plane shook harder, voices clashed louder, and the fear became uncontrollable. By the time the landing gear lowered, Naomi knew this was more than just a diversion, it was survival. The plane dips through thick clouds, the windows glowing pale gray as mist streaks past. The cabin rattles violently, overhead bins creaking, plastic trays shuddering in their slots. The seatbelt sign blinks an unsteady glow, the ding sharper each time. Naomi presses her head back against the seat, her breath quick and shallow. Her chest aches with every bump of turbulence. The hum of the engines isn't steady anymore, it pulses, groaning against the wind. The red lipstick woman shouts over the rattling. This is what happens when order isn't enforced. I told you all, she's the reason for this chaos. Her voice cuts through the plane like a knife, igniting a chain reaction. Someone from row 11 fires back. It's the weather, not her. Stop making this worse. The suited man raises his voice, calm but commanding. All of you, quiet. We're about to land, and the captain doesn't need this cabin turning into a riot. Let the crew handle her when we're on the ground. Naomi's hands tremble in her lap. She doesn't dare speak, but her mind is a storm. I can't even defend myself. If I say anything now, they'll twist it. Everyone will hate me. When we land, will I be dragged off in front of all of them? Another violent jolt sends a bag tumbling from an overhead bin. It thuds onto the aisle, making a few passengers scream. The baby from earlier cries louder. A man shouts, "For God's sake, can we just land already?" Victoria moves down the aisle, her grip firm on the seat backs as she balances through the shaking. Her voice rises above the noise, cool but forceful. "Everyone remain calm. We are moments from landing. Stay seated. We will resolve any outstanding concerns once we're on the ground." Her eyes lock on Naomi again at the word concerns, making the target clear for anyone watching. The teenager filming from row 9 whispers into his phone. She's not even doing anything, and they're making it look like she's the cause. This is going viral when we land. The gear deploys beneath the plane, a heavy mechanical groan echoing through the cabin. The sudden shift in altitude makes a few passengers grab for their armrests, knuckles white. Naomi closes her eyes, her breath shaky. Her thoughts blur into one desperate loop. Just land. Please, just land. And maybe, somehow, the truth will come out before they destroy me. The plane cuts through the final layer of clouds, the faint lights of Shannon Airport glowing in the distance below. But inside the cabin, no one feels relief. The air is still heavy, charged, like something's waiting to erupt the moment the wheels touch down. She thought the ground would bring relief, but the landing felt like another battle. The wheels slammed, the voices rose, and the crew circled her seat like vultures. By the time the plane rolled to a stop, Naomi realized the real confrontation was about to begin. The plane plunges through the final layer of clouds, the runway lights below glowing like faint orange lines cutting through the dark. The turbulence doesn't stop, the cabin rattles so violently that cups and loose items slide down the tilted aisle. Naomi's grip on the armrests is so tight her fingers cramp. Her breath is fast, shallow, every muscle in her body locked. Around her, the noise swells, passengers muttering, arguing, gasping at each hard shake. The captain's voice crackles overhead, calm but taut. "Cabin crew, prepare for landing. All passengers remain seated and secured. We will be on the ground shortly." The red lipstick woman calls out, her voice slicing through the hum of engines. "Finally! And when we land, make sure she's the first one off, escorted." Naomi lowers her eyes, but her inner thoughts scream louder than the cabin. They're going to drag me off this plane like I'm some criminal, when I haven't done anything. Will anyone believe me? Will those videos even matter? The teenager with the phone whispers into his mic, low but determined. "I'm recording everything. People will see the truth. She's done nothing wrong, and they're about to make her a headline." The plane tilts sharply, then the wheels slam onto the runway with a heavy thud, bouncing once before gripping the tarmac. Passengers gasp, some clutching their seats tighter. The aircraft roars as the engines reverse, the plane slowing, the vibrations shaking every seat back. The suited man smirks, muttering just loud enough. Let's see how she explains herself to airport security. Victoria moves down the aisle slowly, her balance flawless despite the tremors. She stops near Naomi's row, her voice low, dripping with cold finality. "Stay seated. Security will meet us at the gate. I suggest you don't make this any harder for yourself." Naomi looks out the window, the runway lights blur past, glowing streaks in the night. Her chest tightens as the plane finally begins to slow, the hum of the engines easing into a low drone. Around her, whispers mix with the steady roll of wheels on tarmac. Some passengers glare, others whisper support, but no one moves to intervene. The plane rolls toward the terminal, and Naomi feels it deep in her bones. The worst part isn't over. It's about to begin. She thought the landing would end it, but the tension only grew. The engines quieted, but the voices rose. By the time the doors stayed closed and the crew called for backup, Naomi realized this plane wasn't letting anyone leave without a scene. The plane slows to a crawl, rolling along the runway toward a distant, dimly lit section of Shannon Airport. Through the small oval windows, the terminal lights glow far away, but the aircraft doesn't head there. Instead, it pulls into a remote bay, far from the main gates. The engines hum softly, then idle to a low growl. The sudden stillness inside the cabin feels unnatural, like the air itself is holding its breath. No one stands. No one moves. Every passenger waits for someone else to break the silence. Then the red lipstick woman mutters, just loud enough to be heard. Good. They're isolating us. Maybe now security can deal with her before we all lose another hour. Naomi's jaw trembles, but she keeps her eyes down. Her mind races. Why are we at a gate? Are they really going to board security here? Am I about to be dragged off in the middle of the tarmac? On camera, in front of everyone? The young man with the phone leans across the aisle, his voice low but firm as he whispers to Naomi. Keep calm. I've got everything recorded, start to finish. People will see the truth, not their story. Victoria appears, walking slowly up the aisle, her uniform perfectly in place, her face a mask of authority. She stops at row 10, planting a hand on the seat in front of Naomi. Her tone is calm, but every word is a dagger. Security will be boarding shortly. You'll remain seated until they arrive. If you try to leave your seat, you'll be restrained. Gasps ripple across the rows. A woman in row 12 blurts out, restrained? For what? She hasn't done anything. The suited man raises his hand, voice cool but commanding. Everyone calm down. The crew's handling it. Let them do their job. If she's innocent, she can explain to the authorities. The baby from earlier starts crying again, the sound cutting through the tense quiet. Another jolt of wind rocks the plane slightly, making a few passengers gasp and grip their seats tighter. Then, the intercom clicks on, but it's not the captain this time, it's another crew member, their voice brisk. All passengers, please remain seated. We are awaiting clearance for security personnel to board the aircraft. Do not stand or open overhead compartments until instructed. The announcement lands heavy. Phones lift again, lenses catching every moment as the cabin sits in a thick, frozen unease. Naomi closes her eyes, her thoughts looping like a drumbeat. Every camera is on me. Every eye thinks I'm the villain. And soon, uniforms will walk down this aisle. If I move, I'm guilty. If I don't, I'm still guilty. How do I survive this? Outside, the faint glow of flashing blue lights reflects off the windows, airport security vehicles approaching across the dark tarmac. And everyone knows. This isn't just a diversion anymore. It's about to become a spectacle. She thought the silence was unbearable, but the moment the doors opened, the cabin exploded. Boots hit the aisle, passengers shouted over each other, and cameras flashed. By the time the first officer reached row 10, Naomi knew this wasn't just about landing anymore, it was about survival and proof. A sharp click echoes as the cabin door finally opens. Cold night air seeps in, mixing with the stale warmth of the cabin. The hum of the engines is low, but the distant rumble of a vehicle can be heard outside. The tension shatters when two uniformed airport security officers step through the door, boots firm on the jet bridge. Their yellow vests glow in the dim cabin light, radios crackling softly at their belts. Phones rise higher, flashes blinking as passengers lean into the aisle. The red lipstick woman whispers to the suited man, loud enough for nearby ears. Finally. They'll take her off, and we can move on. The teenager filming from row 9 mutters into his mic. Here we go. Everyone's gonna see what really happened. Naomi's heart thunders, every muscle in her body tense. Her thoughts race like static. If I stand, they'll think I'm resisting. If I speak, they'll twist it. Do I even have a chance? Or am I just done? Victoria walks ahead of the officers, her stride deliberate, posture stiff. She gestures subtly toward row 10 without looking at Naomi, her voice calm but edged. This is the passenger in question. She has repeatedly failed to comply with crew instructions and safety protocols during turbulence. Gasps and mutters ripple through the rows. A woman in row 12 calls out, her voice sharp. That's not true. I've been watching, she hasn't done a single thing wrong. This is harassment. One of the officers raises his hand for silence, his tone even but firm. Everyone remain seated. We're here to de-escalate and resolve the situation. No one is being removed unless necessary. The suited man smirks, speaking just loud enough. Necessary? Look around, she's the reason we're on this runway instead of halfway to New York. Another passenger, a middle-aged father with his kids, fires back. No, the weather's the reason. Stop blaming her for everything. The cabin turns into a clash of voices again, louder and messier than before. Some film, others shout, a few cry, and the baby wails as the officers step closer to row 10. Naomi's breath shakes as one officer kneels slightly beside her seat, his tone low and careful. Miss, we're just here to talk. Can you confirm your name and seat number? Naomi nods silently, her voice caught in her throat. The officer glances toward Victoria, then back at Naomi. We're going to review statements from the crew and passengers. For now, stay calm. No decisions have been made. But Naomi can feel it in the air, the judgment from half the cabin, the quiet support from the other half, and the cold, watchful eyes of Victoria standing behind the officers like a shadow. The plane sits silent again for a brief, uneasy moment. Then the captain's voice breaks over the intercom, calm but final. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the current situation, all passengers will remain on board until we have full clearance from security to disembark. Please remain seated. The words land like a gavel. No one is leaving, not yet. And Naomi realizes this isn't over. It's only getting worse. She thought the worst was being surrounded, but the real storm started when the questions came. Witnesses clashed, stories unraveled, and the crew's confidence began to crack. By the time the first video played, Naomi realized maybe the truth had a chance to fight back. The two officers split up, one remaining with Naomi while the other begins moving row by row, speaking quietly to passengers. The hum of the idling engines outside is the only steady sound as whispers and murmurs ripple through the cabin. Naomi sits frozen, her pulse heavy in her ears. Her fingers fidget with the edge of her trench coat as she forces her breathing to slow. Her thoughts churn. If they believe Victoria, I'm done. If they see the videos, maybe I stand a chance. But will they listen? Or just rush to clear the flight? The officer beside her crouches slightly, his tone calm but precise. Miss, for now, you're not under arrest. We just need to confirm what's been happening. Did you refuse any crew instructions during the flight? Naomi shakes her head quickly. No. I followed everything. I didn't move except when they told me to. I just sat here. The officer nods but keeps his expression neutral, jotting a note on his small pad. Across the aisle, the other officer speaks to passengers. The teenager from row 9 shows him his phone screen, whispering. I've got everything. She never broke a rule. The crew just kept targeting her. Farther up the aisle, the red lipstick woman leans in, her voice sharp. She was restless. Moved around during turbulence. The attendant was right to be concerned. We all felt unsafe because of her. The officer listening to her doesn't respond, simply scribbles notes before moving on. The suited man chimes in next, his tone calm but smug. Doesn't matter if she was polite. The cabin was tense, and the crew did their job. If she's removed, we can all continue safely. But several rows back, a middle-aged woman clutching her phone speaks firmly to the same officer. I've got video too. She never did a thing wrong. This is crew abuse, plain and simple. The whispers swell into arguments again as more passengers weigh in. Some call for Naomi's removal, others defend her openly. Phones are passed toward the officers, screens glowing as they review shaky but damning footage, Victoria's raised voice, Naomi sitting still, passengers whispering accusations that don't match what the cameras captured. Victoria stands near the galley, her hands clasped behind her back, her face composed but her posture rigid. Her eyes follow the officers as they watch each video, her jaw tightening when one of them rewinds and replays a clip of her yelling. Naomi glances up just enough to catch that moment, the faint crack in Victoria's mask. Her thoughts flicker with a glimmer of hope. If they see the truth, Maybe I won't walk off this plane in handcuffs. Maybe they'll finally hear me. The officer by her side leans closer, voice low. We're reviewing all footage before making any decision. Stay calm. You'll have a chance to speak before we act. Naomi exhales shakily, gripping her knees. For the first time since boarding, she feels like maybe, just maybe, she's not completely alone. She thought the investigation would drag on quietly, but the questions hit like thunder. Passengers spoke up, the videos kept rolling, and the cracks in the crew's story widened. By the time Victoria had to answer directly, Naomi realized the tide was finally turning. The cabin is no longer silent, it's buzzing with tension and voices. The two security officers meet at row 8, sharing notes while still reviewing passenger phones. A faint click of rewinding audio plays as they replay Victoria's raised voice captured on multiple videos. The teenager from row 9 raises his voice just enough for nearby rows. Look, she's just sitting there in every clip. It's the attendant screaming, not her. How's that a disturbance? Several passengers nod and murmur their agreement, emboldened now that the officers are listening. The middle-aged woman clutching her phone leans into the aisle, her voice sharp. I have half the flight on video. If they try to say she caused this diversion, I'll post everything tonight. The world will see. The officers exchange a brief glance before one of them steps toward the front of the cabin, where Victoria is standing near the galley. Her posture is rigid, her jaw tight, but her expression stays calm as the officer approaches. His voice is steady, but firm enough for nearby passengers to hear. Ma'am, we've reviewed several passenger recordings. We need your account of why this individual was flagged as a disruption. Victoria straightens her uniform jacket, her chin raised slightly. She was repeatedly moving during turbulence. Ignored direct safety instructions. Other passengers expressed fear that she was endangering the cabin. As crew, it's my duty to maintain order. Before the officer can respond, the woman from row 12 stands slightly in her seat, voice loud. That's a lie. She didn't move once during the rough patches. I watched the whole time. The suited man scoffs, his voice cutting in. You're not a flight attendant. You don't know what's safe. The crew had every right. But his words are drowned out when another passenger, a father from row 14, holds up his phone, showing a paused frame of Victoria standing over Naomi, finger pointed, voice raised while Naomi sits motionless. This is what actually happened. She wasn't the threat. The crew was. The murmurs swell into a chorus of frustration, several passengers openly siding with Naomi now. Phones are angled toward Victoria, catching her tightening jaw and flickering eyes as the officer reviews the footage in silence. Naomi watches from her seat, her heart still pounding, but for the first time, her thoughts aren't drowning in fear. They see it. They see her for what she's done. Maybe I won't be the one leaving this plane in cuffs. The officer finally speaks, his tone calm but edged with finality. Ma'am, based on multiple accounts and evidence, we're going to need a full statement from you and the rest of your crew before any passenger is removed. For now, no one is being escorted off this flight. Gasps ripple through the cabin, a mix of relief and disbelief. The red lipstick woman hisses under her breath, unbelievable, while the teenager with the phone grins slightly, whispering into his camera. Finally, some justice. Victoria's expression doesn't break, but her hands curl slightly at her sides. For the first time, the control is in hers. And Naomi? She sits a little straighter, though her hands still tremble. The storm isn't over, but the balance of power is shifting. She thought she'd be silenced until the end, but the questions turned to her at last. The crew's control cracked, the passengers rallied, and the cameras never stopped recording. By the time Naomi opened her mouth, everyone on board knew the truth was about to come out. The cabin feels different now. The tension is still thick, but the direction has shifted. No longer all eyes judging Naomi, now, many are staring at Victoria, waiting for her next move. The two security officers finish quietly conferring, then one turns and kneels slightly beside Naomi's seat, his tone calm but clear. Miss, we've heard from passengers, We've seen recordings. We want to hear from you directly. Tell us exactly what happened from boarding until now. Naomi exhales shakily, her hands still trembling as she folds them in her lap. She glances around the cabin, phones pointed toward her, passengers leaning in, the faint hum of the engines the only steady sound. Her voice is quiet at first, but steady. I boarded. I followed every instruction. My bag was secured. I never unbuckled during turbulence. I never raised my voice. The flight attendant kept coming back, accusing me, threatening to move me, threatening to have me removed. I just sat here, trying not to make it worse. The teenager from row 9 adds loudly, holding up his phone. Every word is true. I've got it all recorded. She never caused any trouble, it was the opposite. Murmurs of agreement ripple through the rows, even a few who had stayed silent earlier nod now, speaking up. She didn't move once. I saw everything. It's all on camera. They made her the scapegoat for no reason. Victoria steps forward, her tone sharp but controlled, trying to reclaim authority. With all due respect, passengers aren't trained to understand safety standards. My actions were in line with. But she's cut off when the father from row 14 stands slightly, holding up his phone toward the officers. This isn't about safety. Watch this. She's sitting completely still while the attendant screams at her. That's not procedure. That's abuse. The officer reviews the video, his jaw tightening slightly as he rewinds and replays the clip. The other officer addresses Victoria directly, his tone firm now. Ma'am, we're going to need you and your crew to provide written statements. Until we review everything, there will be no removal of this passenger. Understood? Victoria's lips press into a thin line. She nods once, stiffly, but says nothing. The red lipstick woman mutters under her breath, "This is absurd," while the suited man glares toward Naomi, but keeps silent now that the tide has turned. Naomi exhales for the first time in what feels like hours. Her inner thoughts aren't relief yet, just exhaustion and disbelief. It's not over. But at least, they're finally listening. Maybe I won't walk off this plane in handcuffs. The intercom clicks on, the captain's voice calm but cool. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be taxiing to a secure gate shortly. Please remain seated while authorities continue their review. We'll update you once clearance is granted for disembarkation. The plane begins to roll slowly across the tarmac, the hum of the engines low, the air inside still heavy but not suffocating anymore. For the first time, Naomi feels like the plane isn't just closing in on her, maybe, just maybe, it's opening a door. She thought the worst was behind her, but the tension still lingered. The plane crept along the tarmac, the silence broken only by whispers and engines. By the time the crew felt every camera on them, Naomi realized the story wasn't ending with her, it was turning toward them. The plane crawls across the tarmac, the faint glow of runway lights sliding past the windows like ghosts. Inside, the cabin is dim, only the soft reading lights casting long shadows across anxious faces. No one speaks above a whisper now, but every sound carries. The hum of the engines. The faint click of phone cameras snapping photos. The mutter of passengers recounting the ordeal to each other, piecing together a narrative the crew can no longer control. Naomi sits still in row 10, her hands folded tightly, her breath finally steadying but her thoughts still racing. I'm not free yet. They could still twist this, try to pin something on me. But, the way everyone's looking at them now, maybe they can't bury this anymore. Up near the galley, Victoria and 2 other crew members stand in a tight cluster, their voices hushed, their posture stiff. Every so often, Victoria glances down the aisle, and each time, she catches a phone angled toward her, recording. Her jaw tightens more each time. The teenager from row 9 leans slightly toward Naomi's row, whispering just loud enough for her to hear. They're sweating now. I've already sent clips to my cloud, even if they try to erase this, it's out there. A woman from row 12 adds in a low voice. Don't worry, love. Half the plane's got your back now. They can't pretend this didn't happen. The red lipstick woman crosses her arms, her voice sharp as she mutters to the suited man beside her. Ridiculous. People always twist things for attention. The crew did their job, and now everyone's filming to play hero. The suited man doesn't reply this time. His earlier confidence has dulled. His eyes shift nervously toward the officers, who are still reviewing clips and quietly questioning crew near the galley. The captain's voice returns over the intercom, calm but clipped. Ladies and gentlemen, we're approaching a secure gate. Please remain seated as authorities complete their review. Once cleared, we will allow passengers to disembark in stages. The words in stages ripple through the rows, a reminder that this flight isn't just landing, it's ending under scrutiny. Naomi exhales slowly, her gaze fixed on the window as the distant glow of the gate approaches. Her thoughts settle into one clear loop. They might not apologize. They might not admit it. But they can't erase the truth now. Not with half the plane watching. The plane turns toward the terminal, the distant blue and white lights of security vehicles glowing against the wet tarmac. The hum of the engines deepens as the plane inches closer. For the first time since Heathrow, Naomi feels something new under the fear. Not relief, but the weight shifting off her shoulders, landing firmly on the crew instead. She thought stepping off the plane would end it, but the doors stayed closed. The gate lights shone through the windows, but no one moved. By the time the first questions hit the crew, Naomi realized this landing wasn't an escape, it was the start of judgment. The plane eases to a stop, the faint jolt of the brakes followed by a long, heavy silence. The engines drone at a low idle, vibrating softly through the cabin floor. Outside, through the oval windows, the blue lights of airport security vehicles reflect against the wet tarmac. Inside, no one moves. The seatbelt sign remains on, glowing a dull amber. The faint hiss of the air vents is the only sound for several long seconds. Then, the captain's voice cuts through the silence, calm but firm. All passengers remain seated. The doors will not open until authorities have finished initial interviews with the crew and secured the aircraft. Please remain patient and follow instructions. Murmurs ripple through the rows. A woman from row 12 whispers. They're questioning the crew first? Good. About time. The teenager from row 9 leans forward, muttering into his phone. Still rolling. They're stalling because they know the videos show everything. Nobody's forgetting this. Naomi sits still in row 10, her fingers laced together tightly, her breath even but deliberate. Her thoughts churn like a quiet current. They're buying time. Hoping to twist it before we get off. But half the plane saw it, half the plane recorded it. They can't bury all of that. Up front, Victoria and 2 other attendants are gathered near the cockpit door. Their posture is stiff, their voice is low, but every glance they cast toward the cabin meets phones and eyes watching closely. The officers stand nearby, taking short statements, their pens scratching quietly. The red lipstick woman, arms crossed, mutters to the suited man beside her. Unbelievable. They're making the crew answer for doing their job. People will twist anything if it's filmed. But this time, the suited man doesn't answer. His earlier confidence has faded into a nervous glance toward the officers reviewing passenger phones near the galley. Another passenger from the back raises their voice just enough to carry forward. Hope they release a statement. We're not leaving here without the truth. Everyone saw what happened. Victoria's jaw flexes, but she keeps her eyes forward, her voice low as she continues speaking to the officers. For the first time, she's not directing the narrative, she's defending herself. The seatbelt sign remains lit, the plane still sealed, and every passenger feels the weight of the weight. Outside, a portable stair truck approaches the aircraft, its headlights cutting through the drizzle on the tarmac. Naomi glances toward the window, her thoughts narrowing to one sharp thread. They can delay. They can stall. But they can't erase this. Not with every camera on them. When those doors open, the story leaves with us. The plane sits motionless, the faint hum of the. She thought the weight would drag on quietly, but the tension finally snapped. Questions hit the crew like bullets, passengers spoke up louder, and every camera caught it. By the time the officers turned to Naomi, everyone knew the real investigation had begun. The cabin door stays shut, but the stair truck is parked outside, headlights beaming into the misty night. Inside, the air feels heavier with every passing second. The two security officers move to the front, standing with clipboards as they face Victoria and her two fellow attendants. Their voices aren't raised, but the murmurs from nearby passengers make it clear enough. The crew is being questioned, not the passengers. The teenager from row 9 whispers into his phone. It's finally happening. They're not hiding behind their uniforms anymore. From a few rows back, the father from row 14 calls out, his voice steady but firm. Ask them about the threats. About how she kept targeting that girl for no reason. Naomi sits still in row 10, her hands resting on her knees, her breathing steady but her heart still pounding. She listens, each muffled response from Victoria adding to the tension twisting in her chest. Her thoughts churn. They're careful now. Careful with every word. They know half the plane is recording. They can't twist it like before. The red lipstick woman huffs loudly, shaking her head. This is absurd. That girl brought all this on herself. The crew did their job, and now they're getting grilled for it. But this time, the middle-aged woman from row 12 snaps back, her voice sharp. Open your eyes. She never caused this. The crew humiliated her for no reason, and we all watched it happen. The murmurs grow louder, some voices agreeing, others still defending the attendants. The officers finally turn toward the cabin, their voices loud enough for all to hear. We will be taking full written statements from all crew and reviewing passenger footage before anyone is removed. Until then, no one will disembark. Gasps ripple through the plane. A man in row 11 mutters. So we're all stuck here because of their mess? Not hers? Naomi exhales quietly, the faintest relief washing over her. Her thoughts soften slightly. For once, they're not pinning this on me first. Maybe they can't anymore. One officer steps toward Naomi, his voice calm, careful. We'll need your full statement shortly. For now, stay seated. You're not in any trouble at this time. The words "not in any trouble" echo in her mind like a lifeline. For the first time all night, Naomi leans back slightly, her shoulders easing just enough to breathe deeper. But the cabin isn't calm yet. Every phone is still up. Every eye is still locked on the front. And the crew, once in full control, now looks like the ones trapped under the spotlight. She thought she'd just be another witness, but the moment she spoke, the cabin went silent. Every eye turned, every phone pointed, and the crew's confidence started to crumble. By the time she finished, Naomi knew the truth wasn't just whispered anymore, it was broadcast for all to hear. The officer kneels by Naomi's seat, his clipboard in hand, while the other stands behind him, scanning the cabin as the phones keep recording. The faint hum of the idling engines is the only steady sound as voices around the plane die down to listen. Naomi swallows hard, her fingers twisting together before she finally unclenches them. Her voice starts soft but gains steadiness with every word. I boarded. I showed my documents. I put my bag away, buckled up, and stayed in my seat. I followed every instruction. I didn't argue, I didn't move during turbulence, I didn't disrupt anyone. But the flight attendant kept coming back. She questioned my seat, checked my bag twice, threatened to move me, and said she'd have me taken off the flight. I didn't even know why. I just kept quiet because I was scared. The teenager from row 9 holds up his phone and says loudly, so the officers and passengers can hear. All of that is on video. She never broke a rule. This wasn't about safety, this was harassment. The middle-aged woman from row 12 adds, leaning into the aisle. I watched the whole flight. She never once unbuckled during turbulence. The crew made her a target. Even the father from row 14 raises his voice, his kid staring wide-eyed beside him. Look, I don't care about sides. I just care about the truth. And the truth is, she didn't start this. The crew did. Victoria, still near the galley, takes a small step forward, her tone clipped but careful. With respect, passengers aren't trained to assess safety issues. My job is to ensure order. Any perceived hostility was to protect. But she's cut off by a new voice from the back, another passenger lifting their phone. Protect who? We all saw it. Protecting us doesn't mean humiliating someone who didn't do anything wrong. The murmurs rise again, this time clearly against the crew. The officers remain calm, but one finally speaks loud enough for all to hear. All statements and recordings will be reviewed. If the passenger followed instructions as multiple witnesses claim, this will be treated as a crew matter, not a passenger violation. Gasps and whispers spread. The red lipstick woman huffs, muttering to the suited man. Unreal. They're making her a victim because people filmed everything. This world's upside down. Naomi exhales, her shoulders loosening for the first time since Heathrow. Her thoughts flicker like a dim light but with more certainty than before. They can't erase this. Not with every camera watching. Not with half the plane speaking up. Maybe I walk off this plane with my dignity intact. The seatbelt sign remains lit, but now it feels less like a cage and more like a pause before resolution. Outside, the security truck idles by the stairs, headlights cutting through the drizzle, waiting for clearance to offload passengers. And for the first time tonight, the crew, not Naomi, feels like the ones waiting for judgment. She thought the silence meant it was over, but the real verdict hadn't dropped yet. The officer's words cut sharper than the turbulence, passengers cheered and jeered, and the crew's faces finally cracked. By the time Naomi heard the warning, she knew justice was landing before anyone left the plane. The cabin door remained shut, the faint hum of the engines vibrating through the floor. The security officers stand at the front, their clipboards now tucked under their arms as they face Victoria and her two fellow attendants. One officer's voice is firm, clear enough for most of the cabin to hear. Based on multiple passenger statements and reviewed recordings, we have found no evidence of this passenger violating safety procedures or disrupting the cabin. Until our investigation concludes, this will be treated as a potential misconduct issue on the part of the crew. Gasps ripple down the rows. The teenager from row 9 whispers into his phone with a faint grin. They just flipped it. The crew's on the hook now. The middle-aged woman from row 12 mutters to those around her. Good. They don't get to bully people and hide behind their uniforms anymore. Victoria's posture stiffens, her jaw tight as she tries to maintain composure. Her voice is controlled, but there's a faint tremor at the edges. Officer, with respect, our actions were within standard protocols. The other officer cuts in, his tone clipped. Protocols don't include repeated targeting without cause. You and your crew will provide full written statements, and we'll be reviewing these recordings further. For now, do not engage with this passenger further. A soft cheer rises from a few rows, quickly hushed by the tension, but loud enough for Victoria's lips to press into a thin, pale line. The suited man, his earlier arrogance drained, mutters quietly to himself but loud enough for those nearby. Unbelievable. They're making the crew the villains because people can't mind their business with those phones. The red lipstick woman huffs, arms crossed tighter. Pathetic. This is why flights turn into chaos, people filming instead of respecting authority. But now, they're the minority voices. Most passengers sit taller, whispering to each other with relief. A father from row 14 says to his kids quietly, "Remember this, just because someone's in uniform doesn't mean they're right." Cameras saved that girl tonight. Naomi exhales slowly, her chest rising and falling with something that feels close to calm for the first time since boarding. Her thoughts settle into a quiet, steady rhythm. They saw it. They said it. It's not just me saying I'm innocent, it's everyone. I can finally breathe. The captain's voice returns over the intercom, calm but clipped. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin disembarking shortly in an orderly fashion. Please remain seated until your row is called. Authorities will be taking additional statements from select passengers as you exit. The seatbelt sign remains lit, but the tension in the air has changed. Naomi isn't the villain anymore. The spotlight has moved. And as the plane sits still by the stair truck, every passenger knows this landing will be remembered long after they leave the runway. She thought she'd leave quietly, but every step became a statement. The passengers whispered encouragement, the crew stood frozen, and every phone stayed on her. By the time she reached the aisle, Naomi knew this wasn't just her exit, it was her vindication. The seatbelt sign finally turns off with a soft ding, but no one rushes to stand. The air feels heavy, like the cabin itself is waiting for something. The glow of the stair truck's headlights outside filters through the windows, casting long shadows down the aisle. One of the security officers steps toward row 10 and speaks softly but clearly to Naomi. "Miss, you'll be exiting first, alongside us. Some passengers may be asked to remain briefly for statements, but you're free to leave. We'll escort you to the terminal." Naomi exhales slowly, her hand smoothing her coat as she rises from her seat. Her legs feel shaky but grounded, every muscle aware of the dozens of eyes and cameras following her every move. From nearby, the teenager from row 9 gives a small nod and whispers, "Got every second. You're not walking out alone, the world's going to see what really happened." The middle-aged woman from row 12 leans forward, murmuring softly, "Head high, love. They tried to break you, but they failed." Everyone knows now. Even a quiet man from row 15, who hadn't spoken the entire flight, finally says, "Justice isn't fast, but at least tonight, it's real." Naomi's chest feels heavy, but not with fear this time. Her inner thoughts are steady, each word measured like her breath. "Every step I take, they see me, not as their scapegoat, but as the one who stood through all of it. I didn't crack. I didn't break. And I'm not leaving in shame." At the front, Victoria and her crew stand rigid by the galley, their faces neutral but pale under the cabin lights. The officers position themselves slightly between Naomi and the attendants, making the line clear, no more confrontations. The captain's voice cuts in over the intercom. "Row 10, you may now disembark. Please follow security instructions." Naomi steps into the aisle, the soft creak of the floor under her shoes louder than the idle engines. Phones follow her every move, capturing her calm, deliberate pace toward the front. As she reaches the door, the cool night air of the Irish runway brushes her face. She glances back once, just long enough to see the rows of passengers, many nodding quietly, some still filming, and the crew standing frozen, their control long gone. Naomi steps down the metal stairs slowly, each footfall echoing on the wet tarmac. And for the first time tonight, she feels the weight lifting. She thought stepping inside the terminal would end the tension, but the eyes followed her, the whispers grew, and the officers stayed close. By the time the other passengers began voicing their demands, Naomi realized this landing wasn't just her freedom. It was the crew's reckoning. The automatic doors of the jet bridge slide open, spilling Naomi into the bright, sterile light of Shannon Airport's terminal. The hum of ventilation and the faint squeak of shoes on polished tiles fill the empty corridor as two security officers flank her, guiding her forward. The air feels lighter than the cabin, but Naomi still feels the weight of dozens of stairs behind her, passengers watching through the bridge windows, phones still raised, following her every step. One officer leans slightly toward her, his tone low and steady. "You're cleared. You're not under investigation. We'll take a short statement before you continue your journey. The airline will cover any rerouting needed." Naomi nods slowly, her voice quiet but steady. "Thank you. I just want this to be over." Her thoughts, however, are far from still. It's not over, not for them. Half the plane saw, half recorded, and none of this can be hidden now. Maybe someone will finally hold them accountable. Behind her, in the corridor, passengers begin filing out row by row. The teenager from row 9 is near the front, speaking loudly enough for others to hear. "I've uploaded everything already. If anyone tries to spin this, it's too late. People will know the truth before we even leave Ireland." The middle-aged woman from row 12 adds, her voice firm as she passes Victoria and the crew, now escorted off separately by two officers. "You tried to humiliate her, and now the whole world's going to see what you did." A father from row 14, still holding his kid's hands, calls back over his shoulder toward Naomi. "Keep your head up. You didn't deserve any of this. And we'll back you if they try to twist it." Victoria and her attendants, now standing to the side near another officer, keep their faces neutral, but their posture is tense, their hands clasped tight, their eyes avoiding the passengers. For the first time, it's clear. They're the ones being watched. Naomi exhales slowly as she's guided to a seating area near the gate, where the sterile airport hum feels almost surreal after the chaos inside the plane. Her breath steadies, her shoulders loosen slightly. For the first time all night, her inner thoughts feel calm. I'm not walking out in shame. They can't erase what happened. And now, maybe someone will make them answer for it. But the echoes of whispers and phone snapping photos remind her. This story isn't just ending here. It's about to spread far beyond this terminal. She thought her words would be quick and forgotten, but they echoed in the terminal. Passengers lined up behind her, complaints turned into demands, and the crew's composure shattered piece by piece. By the time she signed her name, Naomi knew this wasn't just her story anymore. It was everyone's. Naomi sits at a plain white table near a security desk, a pen in her trembling hand. The sterile hum of the terminal feels almost unreal compared to the chaos of the cabin. Across from her, a security officer slides a form forward, his tone calm but firm. "Just a clear account of your experience, miss. Be precise, and take your time. This will go directly into the incident report." Naomi exhales slowly, gripping the pen. Her handwriting shakes slightly as she writes. Every detail. Every accusation. Every time she stayed quiet as Victoria's voice rose. Each line feels like unloading the weight she's carried since Heathrow. Behind her, the teenager from row 9 approaches another officer, his phone unlocked, screen glowing as he says, "I have everything, the yelling, the threats, the turbulence. Want me to airdrop or email all the footage?" The officer nods, taking the device carefully. Across the hall, the middle-aged woman from row 12 stands with arms crossed, her voice sharp as she speaks to a different security staffer. This wasn't a misunderstanding. That crew harassed her. We all saw it. I'm filing a formal complaint against the airline myself. More passengers gather in small clusters, some whispering, others speaking openly. They can't get away with this. I want a refund for the diversion. The videos are going viral tonight. This airline's about to regret everything. Near the far wall, Victoria and her 2 fellow attendants sit apart, escorted by 2 officers. Their postures are stiff, their faces composed but pale. Victoria's fingers drum lightly against her knee, a faint twitch betraying her otherwise calm expression. She glances once toward Naomi, but quickly looks away when she notices 2 phones discreetly filming her from a distance. Naomi finishes writing and slides the form forward. Her voice is quiet but steady. That's everything. Every word is true. The officer nods, glancing over the paper before setting it aside. Thank you, miss. You're free to continue your journey once rerouting is arranged. We'll be contacting you if further details are needed, but as of now, you're cleared. Naomi exhales, her shoulders finally dropping as she leans back slightly in her chair. Her inner thoughts settle into something almost unfamiliar after hours of fear. It's over for me, but not for them. Half this terminal knows, half the internet will know by morning. They can't bury this. Not this time. The terminal buzzes louder now, the murmurs of passengers rising into open frustration. Some approach the airline's on-site supervisor, demanding answers and written guarantees for refunds. Others film short clips, summarizing the ordeal for the cameras already waiting outside. Naomi sits quietly, feeling the weight of it all, but for once, not as a victim. Now, she's just a name at the center of a story the airline will never forget. She thought she could quietly disappear, but the terminal erupted. Voices rose, the airline scrambled, and the crew's confidence cracked beyond repair. By the time Naomi was led away, she realized this wasn't just a delay anymore. It was a reckoning. The buzz of the terminal swells into a chorus of voices as more passengers from the flight cluster near the arrival desk. The sterile hum of the airport is drowned out by frustration. The airline supervisor, a man in a navy suit with a lanyard around his neck, steps forward with two staff members, his voice raised just enough to be heard over the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the diversion and delay. Your safety is always our top priority, and we're arranging accommodations and rerouting for all affected passengers." But the crowd doesn't settle. The middle-aged woman from row 12 crosses her arms, her voice sharp. "Safety? Is that what you call what we just saw? Your crew humiliated a passenger for no reason, and we all watched it happen. We're not letting this go." The teenager from row 9 raises his phone, the screen still recording as he calls out. "Everyone's seen the clips already. This isn't going away. Your airline better make a statement before the internet does it for you." A few more passengers chime in, voices overlapping. "I want a refund. This wasn't weather, it was abuse. Your crew should be suspended immediately. We're all witnesses. I'm sending this to every news outlet I know tonight." Across the terminal, Victoria and her two fellow attendants remain seated under the quiet watch of two security officers. Their faces are neutral, but their posture is rigid, and for the first time, they look like the ones on trial. Victoria's eyes flicker toward the growing crowd, her lips pressed into a hard, silent line. Naomi, seated to the side near another officer, watches the chaos unfold from a distance. Her breath is steady now, but her thoughts remain heavy. It's not me anymore. It's them. And no amount of polished apologies is going to stop what's coming when these videos spread. The officer beside her leans down slightly, speaking quietly. "Your connection is being arranged. We'll walk you to another gate once the crowd settles. You won't have to interact with the crew again." Naomi nods slowly, clutching her coat as she glances once more toward the crowd, phones raised, voices demanding answers, and every lens catching the airline supervisor's strained expression. She rises slowly when the officer gestures. The sound of the terminal is still a low roar behind her as she steps toward the quieter corridor leading to another gate. And though she doesn't say a word, her inner thoughts settle into something final. "I'm leaving this behind tonight." But they won't. Not for a long time. The voices of the passengers echo behind her, demanding statements, refunds, and accountability as the security team leads her down the polished hallway. And the further she walks, the lighter her steps feel. She thought walking away would silence it, but the noise followed her. The terminal buzzed like a hive, phones lit up with pings, and whispers trailed her steps. By the time Naomi reached the new gate, she knew the flight was over, but the story was just beginning. Naomi moves through a dim corridor, her footsteps soft against the polished floor as two security officers walk at her sides. The faint hum of the airport returns, quieter than the chaos she left behind, but the echoes of voices from the terminal still carry, passengers demanding refunds, questioning the crew, phones capturing every angle. The officer on her right glances toward her, his voice calm but low. "You're clear, miss. You'll be rebooked on a morning flight to New York, first class, no additional charge. The airline will cover a hotel tonight." Naomi nods slightly, her voice soft. "Thank you. I just want to move on." But even as she says it, her thoughts swirl beneath the quiet. Moving on won't erase this. Not with all those cameras, not with everyone already talking. This flight isn't just a nightmare for me anymore, it's about to be everywhere. Her phone vibrates in her coat pocket. She pulls it out and glances at the screen. 3 unread messages. 2 missed calls. Social media notifications are already stacking up, her name tagged in posts by fellow passengers, clips spreading with captions. Racist flight attendant harasses passenger, plane diverted. Full story coming soon, airline faces backlash. Naomi exhales slowly, slipping the phone back into her pocket as she walks. She doesn't smile. She doesn't speak. But a quiet sense of vindication settles deep in her chest. Behind her, faintly through the corridor, the murmurs of the crowd spike again. The airline supervisor's voice rises, strained. "We're addressing your concerns, but please, lower your phones." He's cut off by another passenger's shout. "No!" Everyone's going to see how you treated her. Victoria and her fellow attendants remain off to the side under guard, their polished posture unraveling, Victoria's jaw tight, her eyes flicking between the officers and the growing wall of cameras aimed their way. For the first time, she's not commanding the room. She's part of the headline. Naomi steps into the quiet gate area, where only a few late-night staff work behind counters. The hum of distant cleaning machines fills the otherwise still space. The officer gestures toward a seating area, his voice softer now. "We'll get you settled. Everything's handled from here." Naomi sits down, her body finally sagging into the chair. Her thoughts, for the first time all night, feel calm. They can try to spin it. They can write all the statements they want. But the truth is out there now. And I just get to breathe again. Her phone buzzes again, a notification flashing across the lock screen. Trending, #Shannon diversion. Naomi closes her eyes, leaning back in her chair as the faint echoes of the angry terminal fade behind her. The flight is over. But the story? It's just taking off. She thought the night would finally grow quiet, but the noise had just changed. The cameras weren't in her face anymore, they were online, on every screen, turning whispers into headlines. By the time Naomi reached her hotel, she knew she was free, but the storm was only growing for them. Naomi walks through a near-empty wing of the terminal, flanked by 2 security officers. The faint buzz of fluorescent lights and the distant roll of cleaning carts echo against the tiled floor. Each step feels lighter, but the soft vibrations in her pocket keep reminding her this isn't over. She finally pulls her phone from her coat. The screen lights up. 47 notifications. Short clips from the plane now flood her feed, shared by multiple passengers. A video of Victoria standing over her, voice sharp, "One more word, and this flight will not continue to New York." A clip of passengers yelling, phones raised, "She hasn't done a thing." A post already trending, "Racist flight attendant forces emergency landing, full story here." Naomi exhales slowly, locking the phone again. Her thoughts are calm, but heavy. I didn't ask to be part of this. But now, I'm the center of something bigger. Maybe that's the only reason they won't bury it this time. The officers guide her through a quiet side exit, where a black sedan waits on the tarmac. One opens the door, his tone soft but professional. "This will take you to your hotel. The airline will cover everything. Tomorrow morning, your new flight will depart." Naomi slides into the back seat, the soft leather sighing beneath her weight. The engine hums low as the driver pulls away, the airport lights fading into the mist behind them. Outside her window, media vans are already pulling up near the main terminal, their logos glowing under street lamps. Reporters cluster by the glass doors, cameras poised, waiting for a glimpse of the crew. Back inside, near the crowded gate, Victoria and her 2 fellow attendants sit in a cordoned-off area, flanked by security and airline officials. Their polished posture is gone, Victoria's blazer slightly creased, her jaw tight, her eyes fixed downward as 2 officers quietly hand her a preliminary report to sign. Passengers continue filming from a distance, murmuring. They're the ones getting written up now. About time. Bet this airline issues a statement by morning. Naomi leans her head back against the seat as the car turns onto a dark, wet highway. Her breath evens, her body finally relaxing as the city lights flicker in the distance. Her thoughts settle into a single, quiet realization. I'm not the headline they wanted. But I'm the one they got. And now, it's their turn to answer for it. Her phone buzzes once more, a news alert flashing across the lock screen. Breaking, emergency landing in Shannon sparks allegations of racial harassment on international flight. Naomi closes her eyes, letting the sound of the tires on wet pavement lull her into silence. For her, the night is finally still. But for Victoria, and the airline, the storm is only beginning. She thought the storm would fade overnight, but it only grew louder. Her phone lit up like a beacon, headlines filled every screen, and the airline silence spoke volumes. By the time Naomi saw the news cycle, she knew she wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was the story. Naomi wakes in a quiet hotel room, the soft hum of the heater and the distant sound of rain against the window the only sounds. The glow of early dawn seeps through the thin curtains, pale and cold. She reaches for her phone on the nightstand. The screen explodes with notifications, dozens of alerts stacked on top of each other. Trending, #Shannon diversion. Passenger harassed by crew, emergency landing sparks outrage. Clips of her on the plane, sitting silently while Victoria looms, already shared thousands of times. Naomi sits up slowly, her hair loose around her shoulders as she scrolls. Her thoughts remain calm, almost detached. I didn't want this. I didn't want anyone to know my name. But now, they're all watching. And for once, they're seeing the truth, not a version the crew can spin. On the hotel TV, muted but visible, a news ticker scrolls beneath footage of Shannon Airport. Airline faces scrutiny after emergency landing, passenger alleges harassment, viral videos support claims. Naomi turns the screen off, tossing the remote aside. She exhales deeply, staring out the window at the wet tarmac below, where planes taxi slowly through the drizzle. Her phone buzzes again, a text from the teenager from row 9. We're all sharing the truth. Media's contacting us. You're cleared, but the crew? Suspended already. Looks like justice is happening. Another notification pops up, a message from the middle-aged woman from row 12. Stay strong. If they try to spin this, we'll speak up again. You're not alone. Naomi sets the phone down, pressing her palms against her knees as she breathes out slowly. Her thoughts find a rare stillness. It's over for me. But it's only starting for them. And maybe that's enough. Outside, the rain begins to slow, the clouds breaking just enough to let a thin sliver of sunlight bleed across the runway. The day feels heavy, but not suffocating anymore. Naomi knows the cameras will still be waiting at the gate when she boards her new flight. She knows the questions won't stop for a while. But for now, wrapped in the quiet of her hotel room, she feels something she hasn't since the plane first took off from Heathrow. She thought her next flight would feel normal, but the weight of the headlines followed her. The airline's words hit every screen, the cameras waited at the gate, and the crew she feared was nowhere to be seen. By the time Naomi boarded, she knew this wasn't just her ending. It was their beginning of consequences. Naomi steps into the bright, echoing terminal of Shannon Airport, her overnight bag slung over her shoulder. The early morning sun filters through the tall glass windows, glinting off the polished tile floors. Her footsteps are soft, but her phone vibrates constantly in her pocket, pulling her attention. She checks the screen. A push notification from multiple news outlets. The headline flashes across her lock screen. Airline confirms suspension of 3 crew members following viral diversion incident, internal investigation ongoing. Naomi stops for a moment, staring at the words. Her breath is steady, her face calm, but her thoughts hum beneath the surface. They can't bury it. Not this time. Everyone saw it, and now the world knows. Nearby, 2 small clusters of reporters and photographers linger near the gates, cameras in hand. They don't approach Naomi, their focus is on the statement, the screens overhead replaying the viral clips in silence. The teenager from row 9 catches her eye from across the terminal, giving her a small, encouraging nod before boarding his own flight. The middle-aged woman from row 12, already speaking to a reporter, waves at Naomi as if to say, "We've got this covered." Naomi exhales, walking steadily toward her gate as her new boarding pass beeps against the scanner. A gate agent smiles softly. "You're first on." No press inside the jet bridge, airline's orders. Naomi nods, stepping past, the hum of the jet bridge echoing like a tunnel behind her. For the first time since Heathrow, her inner thoughts feel light. No pointing fingers. No raised voices. No phones in my face. Just a flight. Finally, just a flight. Outside, on a nearby screen, the airline's full statement scrolls. "We take these allegations seriously. The involved crew members have been suspended pending investigation. We apologize to all passengers affected by the diversion and will be issuing compensation for the inconvenience. Naomi glances once at the words before entering the aircraft. She doesn't smile. She doesn't gloat. But a quiet thought settles as she finds her seat, gazing out at the soft morning sky. They'll handle it now. The cameras, the headlines, the fallout, it's their storm to face. For me, it's time to leave it behind. The doors of the plane close, the engines hum to life, and as the runway stretches ahead, Naomi finally feels something she hasn't since the nightmare began: peace. She thought leaving the ground would erase it, but the headlines followed her into the clouds. While the world raged below, Naomi sat in silence, finally weightless, not from the altitude, but from freedom. By the time the plane crossed the Atlantic, she knew the storm wasn't hers anymore. The plane glides steadily through a soft blanket of clouds, the engines humming a low, soothing note. The cabin lights are dim, most passengers resting or watching their screens. Outside, the sun breaks through, spilling pale gold light across the wing. Naomi sits by the window, her seat reclined slightly, hands folded in her lap. Her phone rests on airplane mode in the seat pocket, a deliberate choice. She exhales slowly, her eyes fixed on the soft blur of sky beyond the glass. But even without checking her phone, the world's reaction follows her. Across the aisle, two passengers scroll through cached feeds, whispering. It's everywhere. Millions of views already. Crew suspended. Lawsuits being talked about. The teenager from row 9, now a few rows ahead on this connecting flight, leans back to whisper to a friend. Her name's protected, but the videos, everyone knows what really happened. Naomi closes her eyes, letting the faint vibration of the engine steady her thoughts. Her mind drifts, not to the chaos, but to the moments in between, the quiet nods from strangers, the whispers of "we've got you," the fact that for once, the truth didn't get buried. Her thoughts are still, almost soft. I don't need to speak. I don't need to post. The truth is already louder than anything I could say. And for once, I can just breathe. A soft chime sounds overhead as the captain's voice breaks the quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, we're cruising at 38,000 feet. Smooth skies ahead. Sit back and relax. Naomi glances out at the endless blue horizon, the Atlantic a glimmering expanse below. Her lips part, just slightly, not quite a smile, but something close. The storm she'd been dragged into is still raging far below, filling news cycles, social media feeds, and boardrooms. But up here, in the thin, quiet air, she finally feels the weight she's been carrying since Heathrow drift away. She thought the chaos would follow her forever, but as the wheels touched down, the noise stayed behind. The cameras, the outrage, the headlines, all still roaring somewhere else. By the time Naomi stepped onto solid ground in New York, she knew her journey was over, even if theirs had just begun. The plane descends smoothly through a clear morning sky, New York's skyline faint in the distance, sunlight glinting off the river below. The cabin is calm, filled with the soft hum of conversations and the gentle shuffle of passengers preparing to land. Naomi sits quietly by the window, her seatbelt fastened, her gaze on the city growing larger beneath the wing. Her phone remains dark in her pocket, notifications muted. She hasn't checked the news, though she knows what's waiting. Her thoughts are quiet, each one deliberate. Let it trend. Let it spread. It's not my burden to carry anymore. I survived it. They'll answer for it. The wheels touch down with a soft thud, the plane rolling down the runway as the skyline looms beyond the terminal windows. A faint ripple of applause passes through the cabin from relieved passengers, but Naomi doesn't clap. She just exhales, a slow, deep release that feels like closing a heavy chapter. As the plane taxis toward the gate, the faint voices of other passengers drift through the aisle. The airline statement wasn't enough. This is going to court. It's already the top story on every major site. At least she's okay. That's what matters most. The seatbelt sign dings off, and passengers rise, collecting their belongings. Naomi waits, letting the crowd thin before she stands. She takes her bag from the overhead bin, moving with calm, unhurried steps toward the exit. At the gate, a few journalists linger behind the security barriers, cameras ready, but Naomi keeps her head low, her hood up, following the escort provided by the airline's ground staff. No words, no statements. Just forward. Outside the terminal, a private car waits. The driver opens the door silently. Naomi slips into the back seat, the soft interior shutting out the airport noise. She looks once out the window, the tall glass walls of JFK reflecting the morning sun, the faint chaos still buzzing behind them, and then leans back against the seat. Her thoughts settle into one final, steady conclusion. They'll deal with the fallout. The cameras, the headlines, the questions. For me, it's over. I made it through. That's all I need. The car pulls away, the city skyline rising in the distance as the hum of traffic replaces the sound of engines. For the first time in what feels like forever, Naomi closes her eyes. And finally, she rests.